Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a Shakespeare Sigma number 40. This one was sent in for a service. It had an issue with the bail, which has been corrected already. But the reel overall is a nice reel. It's a solid reel that Shakespeare made in the late 70s, early 80s. There was a whole line of Sigma reels. It included the spinning reels as well as the round bait casters. They were all very well made, nicely engineered. These were made in Japan. And, well, we're going to show you how to take this apart, how to service it, and how to keep it running. So we're going to start by removing the exterior pieces and parts. And as we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button, as that will enable you to see the reels that I'm working on, and you'll be able to see which ones you want to watch. I work on all kinds. I work on freshwater and saltwater. I work on round bait casters, low profile bait casters, spinning reels, ocean reels. So it's quite a variety. In essence, when you're watching my channel, you're watching me service whatever comes into my shop. So it's always fun to see what kind of mixes are out there, and, well, what kind of reels I'm getting, and which kind of reels I'm servicing. Hey, who knows, you may have one and you'll learn how to service it yourself. That's the idea behind the channel. Well, we're taking off the 3 side plate screws. Those side plate screws are going to hold this case on, and that'll give us an indication underneath about, well, what needs to be serviced. Typically what you want to do is remove this side case so that you can remove the axle shaft and then the rotor, and that'll give you the picture inside in terms of what the engineering is, how the reel is made, and well, the technologies behind them. 3 side plate screws come off. I also like to find, if I do have it in an anti-reverse, I want to override that, just so that if there is a dog that's interconnected somehow, I don't pop the dog out and lose the orientation of it. All right, the side plate should come off now, and we have a kind of a traditional 1970s, 80s sort of a setup here. We have a crosswind arm. It's driven by an eccentric or an offset gear on the main gear. That's the ring. And then we have a drive behind that with the pin that's going to push your axle shaft up and down. So we can remove this by removing the arm first. And that arm has that pin interconnected. Then we can pull up and out on the axle shaft, and this one's loaded with grease, so that's why you want to go ahead and service that. Now we should be able to remove the main gear. Again, pretty much grease choked. You can see the old greases in there. And underneath here, you're going to notice we have a plastic drive here with 2 prongs on it, and that's going to be the anti-reverse catch. So when we go put that back together, we want to make sure we can align that properly. I don't think there's any ball bearings in this, but we're going to take off the rotor just to check. That should have a 12mm nut up there. You're going to need a deep socket for that. And you saw me, I tried to take it off in a traditional manner, which is a counterclockwise direction. It didn't turn. That meant that to me, it meant that it's a reverse thread, and you just want to turn it clockwise. You can remove that, and we do have a ball bearing and an assembly under here. This is a trip lever assembly. It should just lift off. There's a little slot that it should rest in over here. I'll try and get a screwdriver under there to move that out. And actually that's going to be held in by that last screw. I'm going to just take a moment here to put those pieces in the parts tray so that I don't knock them off. And while I'm doing that, I want to encourage you to ask questions along the way. Maybe you're working on a reel and you're stuck in the setup. Maybe you want more information on a particular manufacturer. Maybe you have a reel at home you don't know the history about. And if I can help you with those questions, I'll try to do that. Leave those in the comments section, and I will try to get back to you with an answer. All right, there's 3 screws that are holding the plate on. This is a good place to tell you to take a picture of the assembly. That way when it comes time to put it back together, you get it in the right orientation. You're going to notice that that trip ramp actually has a tag that goes underneath the assembly. That assembly faces square to your arm. Take that out, take the collar off, and we should be able to pull this assembly out now. Well, actually we have that collar under there. Let's get the bearing out and see if we can move the collar through. I don't think we can. We have to bring it out this way from underneath. With the pieces out then, that's the trip collar for your anti-reverse. We're going to take a moment here to clean these parts. This reel was a little rough running, but it's typically rough running. It's got side case bushings, doesn't have bearings in the side. That's going to make a little bit of noise as they wear. It also has a single ball bearing up top here that you saw when we took that apart. And the gearing itself, that crosswind mechanism, tends to make the reel a little bit noisier as well. But I think the biggest issue with this is lack of lubrication. You saw the dried grease on the back of the main gear when we removed that. My guess is that's the primary reason why the reel's making a little bit of noise. We've taken that out, we've cleaned it, we've lubricated. We're going to put it right back in, just like that. The main bearing, we want to spin it, make sure that it's spinning fine. I'm going to oil that bearing. I oil bearings. I don't like to put the greases on them. We'll bring this up, bring the bearing in. Then we want to seat that into the housing. Just like that. When we do that, then we can go ahead and put the back pieces in. That's why I've left them on the table here. First piece in is that little collar with the tag. And then on this one, there's offsets. You can see that they're tapered on the one side and flat on the other. The taper side goes up. And then we can just use a pick to align the holes of the three. And we can start our screw back in. I'm going to just take a minute and buff that off. There's a little bit of varnish on this collar. Doesn't hurt to try and get that off. Well, I guess it's a stain more than it is dirt. Yeah, it's a stain from the old greases. Okay, whatever. All right, put the collar in. Slip we can actually start one of the nuts here, or screws. That's going to hold the bearing in place so that the shaft doesn't ride up and down. I'll just leave it loose, that way we can, makes it a little easier to put this tag in back in on this side and over the other one. We can continue putting those screws in. So a rather simple design on this reel, but sometimes simplicity wins. For one thing, there's less parts to break. And an enduring design is, to me, is kind of a true test of a reel in terms of it lasting. You can have the highest grade type designs with thousands of parts with minimal value add to the extra pieces and parts. For example, I'm not quite sure why you need 14 ball bearings in a reel. Somebody said it's better than 13, I guess, right? Well, to me, that's not necessarily of value, but some folks like it. Okay, I'm going to tighten down those screws on the collar then, spin it, make sure that it spins okay. It does. We can go ahead and put that rotor back on. Clean underneath, make sure that there's no issues there. You don't want any dirt or debris or the like. This is a trip mechanism, so you can put oil on that. I just serviced the bail. The bail was off the reel. We had to reinstall that. I wasn't thinking much at the time of doing a video, but then I decided to, so that's why you didn't see the bail service. Just mop this up. We can reinstall the rotor. You want to push up. You need to make sure that that's all the way up when you go to reinstall. There's a lock washer that goes on top of that, and then there's our cap, the nut. So as you can see, there's not too many pieces and parts in this. You can do this one yourself, and it will last. It will certainly help you to keep a reel running for a long time to come. For those of you watching me try to put the nut on, I'm going to apologize for my hands being in the way. I like to hand start all of the nuts on the rotors, pinion gears, because if you try to do it any other way, chances are you're going to strip it, and then you're going to have trouble. Remember, this is a reverse threaded nut. I was just having a little trouble grabbing that first tooth. All right, we can tighten that up again. And then what you want to do is give it a spin. Make sure that it turns nice and easily in order to stop that. All right, let's go over and clean the main gear up. That would be the next part here. You can see the old greases on here from quite some time ago. I'm going to mop that out. And like the other one, this one has a little bit of shellac on there. Check the teeth on your main gear. Make sure that they're all uniform and clean. Check the two sides, the face side, and then check the points here. Now these are cast iron or whatever, not cast iron, cast metals, pot metals. So they tend to wear faster and be a little bit noisier than the more modern CNC cut, die cut kind of pieces. But again, the pricing on this reel is nowhere in the vicinity of the pricing on the other reels. Give it a turn once you put it in. Make sure that it turns free and easy. And at this point, you can put that anti-reverse back in. Make sure that it's turning back, which it is. Let's go ahead and take that axle shaft, clean that off. There's a lot of old dirt and the like. This one may need a little bit of a buffing with some steel wool. Notice there's an accumulation of some old greases up top here, so you want to get that off as well. That could have an effect on the reel bottoming out. And then, because there's a lot of dirt on there now, let's get rid of this paper towel so we don't transfer that any further. Next up then is a light coating of grease onto the axle shaft before we reinstall that. That goes down through the rotor, and leave that hole for that in the front-facing position so that you can reinstall this pin on the back end of your crosswind arm. Clean that up. You want to put a little bit of grease onto the face of the main gear. And we can take that crosswind arm, set it into the hole, bring it over the top, and then just align it so that it is seated over the top. There's just a little bit of old grease on there. Let's get that out of there while we're at it. So here's how your reel works. That's an offset rim on the main gear. Notice that your axle shaft goes up and down as that eccentric or offset moves within the case. We have one washer that goes onto the top of this. That's going to hold that arm in place. And then we just have a bushing, no bearings. And it's inside the case. It's molded into the case. So just a little bit of grease on there will help that to go. This one is set up for a right-hand crank. This can be moved to a left-hand crank. You would just take the side cover off, the cap, install the cap where you would have that handle in the past, and then just reverse it by screwing in the handle on this side. Early reels did not have the flexibility of changing the handle location from left to right side, but by the late 60s and 70s that kind of became a standard. Prior to that, the reels that had the left-hand side crank were even numbered and the right-hand side cranks were odd numbered. So if you get a Mitchell, for example, it's a 309, that would be a right-handed version of the 308 reel, which would be a left-hand crank. Okay, put that on. Got the handle now. I did hear that handle making a little bit of noise, so I'm going to put a little bit of oil into those two spots. We'll go load this up now. And we'll take a quick look at the service on the drags. These should probably be plastic drag washers in there, I'm not sure. But let's go find out. This has a little C-clip that's holding it in place. It's a tension clip. I use a razor knife to get behind that clip to pull it out. Once you raise it, just hold it. It is a spring. And if you're not careful with it, it's going to shoot. You want to service the drags because you want to make sure that they're functional and that they're clean. Well, these are felt drags. First thing you want to do is clean the inner cavity because that's where the dirt accumulates. This is a top drag fishing reel, so as the line is coming down, the wet line, it's coming into this bowl here and it's draining into that cavity there. So you need to make sure that you clean out all that dirt and debris. These are felt washers. Felt washers get oiled. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of drops of fishing reel oil on there. And this is a 6-drag system. So there's two what are called keyed washers. They're rectangular in the center and round on the outside. And then there's one eared washer, which is round in the center and has 2 points. The round washer with the 2 points, the eared washer, goes in the middle of the stack. And then we've got the last of the felt washers. So all three are oiled up. Top cap goes on. And then we need to reinstall this. So just be careful as you put that in, but nest one side into the groove and just walk it around. Some of these are easier to do than others. And then just press it down. Make sure that it's in the cavity. It's a retention ring. It doesn't have any mechanical purpose other than to hold that stack in place. All right, your drags have been serviced. Looks like there's a little bit of dirt underneath here, so let's go ahead and get that out of the way. We can reinstall the spool. I'm going to wipe that off. There's something on there. I guess it's worn through there. It's a plastic spool. Looks like the coating is worn through. And just work your spool around until you have it all aligned. Bring it in. Put the button on. And we can give it a test. Make sure your drags are holding. They're holding nice and firm, and then back it off. You don't want to compress those felt washers. It'll shorten the life of them and it'll squeeze the oils off that we just put in there. Only use the drag when you're fishing. When you're done fishing, then back that off on all reels. All right, it's a beautiful looking reel. Nice example of a Japanese reel. It's quieted down a little bit. Let's go ahead and flip the bail. Back off the anti-reverse. Forward the anti-reverse. Lock it in. There you go. That's your Shakespeare Sigma 040. Nice example of a Japanese reel. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like the video. And again, if you like these types of videos, please subscribe. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. Your efforts are appreciated. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, stay watching, and have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.